Hello and welcome to IT Auditing with SK, your go-to resource for all things IT auditing. Today's training is going to be a little bit different where we are going to look at some useful prompts that you can use, ChatGPT prompts that you can use when performing your IT audit related work. And we'll be mainly starting off with the planning section and then execution reporting in subsequent videos. So let's dive right in. Now, planning, as you know, is a foundational step when performing any audit. And for this example, I'll just use IT general controls just to keep in line with the theme of the channel. But if you are doing any audit, any IT related audit, then you are going to perform some planning. So it's the phase where you normally want to identify your scope, understand risks, determine which systems and controls to audit. So ChatGPT can be very helpful in terms of you doing that. And we're going to look at some four or so prompts, talk about how to customize them to ensure that you get the output that you need. So firstly, let's say it's your first time. So this is one key prompt that you can use. So ChatGPT, what are the most critical IT general controls I should consider when conducting an audit for a financial services company? Really useful prompt if you're someone who is fairly new to IT auditing. You don't know where to start. You just want to have an understanding of key areas that you're likely to cover within IT general controls. And this will really give you a good grounding. So as it generates, I'll just start to scroll through some of the response here. We've got access management and identity controls, really key. I think in any IT audit, you're likely to look at some access related controls, change management, software development, IT operations, security management, logical access, IT governance, compliance, business continuity, disaster recovery, and so forth. The important thing here is that it gives you a starting place, and ChatGPT also goes on to say, would you like a detailed audit checklist or an IT general controls framework template to help you structure your audit? So obviously you can go ahead and say, yes, I would like an ITGC framework template. And this is really so powerful. I know when I started in IT audit, definitely didn't have this, and I would have appreciated having such a tool. So there we go. It's just drafting a template and it's already in a tabular format. So really easy for you to pick up information, put it on an Excel file, and you have somewhere to start. It's broken it down into control areas, control objectives, testing procedures, and also in terms of maybe referring back to some kind of standard or framework, it's also listed where it's getting this information from. I will mention obviously standards frameworks are always consistently changing. So you want to refresh this if you're going to use such a table going forward. You want to check if there are any changes at all to these standards and frameworks, and just also sense checking. I think that's the main thing with ChatGPT. You always have to sense check even though it does the heavy lifting for you. You will need to sense check to see if what you have is actually correct. But again, this is a really good starting point. Just copy paste from here and you have a place to start. So here we go. That's one of the prompts that you can use. And I'll just go back to our main screen here. Another prompt that you can use now that you would have some understanding of perhaps what you're trying to audit. um, Here's another prompt, and you don't need to start with ChatGPT, but just for purposes of this demonstration, we'll do that, right? So ChatGPT, can you provide an example of a risk assessment matrix for an IT general controls review? It's really important that you conduct a risk assessment. Firstly, it will help you refine your scope further, so areas where you need to pay a little bit more attention to. It'll also help you manage your resources better, so you know maybe if we're talking about timelines, if we're talking about people, so you really know again where you need to focus certain people or resources onto, so this is in terms of areas that you're auditing, right? And right, I might need to regenerate this. Let's see. This happens, so it's pretty normal, right? Let's send it again. Right, here's an example. Okay, so we've got an IT general controls risk assessment metrics. Again, I'll also emphasize, doesn't have to be IT general controls, but if you are doing any kind of audit, it's a starting point, right? And I always feel like when you're part of an external audit firm like the Big Four, you may not appreciate just how all the information you have. So usually you've got templates, you've got things already done for you, you've got a set methodology, always getting updates. So you may not appreciate actually coming up with the risk assessment metrics. Sometimes all these things have already been done for you. You don't need to think about sampling, for example. You don't need to think about documentation formatting because you already have some really good templates that you're following. But if you work maybe, let's say, for a small organization with a fairly simple audit team where you have to create your own thing, so this really becomes useful. So here, I think it's done generating. We've got an IT risk assessment matrix. Risks have been numbered, IT general control areas. We've got some risk descriptions, likelihood, impact, risk level, mitigation strategy, responsible team, status. So obviously, this is hypothetical. You will need to then make sure that it's refined and talking to your audit scope, your type of organization that you're auditing. So there we go. It's also given a risk rating scale, impact scale, risk level as well, and also giving you some guide in terms of how to use this metric. So really, really good if you are perhaps wanting to demonstrate that you've created this template, even include this how to use matrix, and then just imagine that people will be using this for years and years to come. So really good thing, really good thing. It even suggests, would you like a customized version in Excel or Power BI for easier tracking? So obviously, if you want to do that, then you would answer yes. So that's our second prompt now. Maybe you need to define the audit strategy or the audit scope rather. So here is another prompt that's useful for that. So how should I define the scope of an IT general controls audit for a medium-sized e-commerce company? If you have more details, you don't need to say e-commerce company. You can be very specific if you want, obviously depending on just how much information you are allowed to share with ChatGPT within your organization. So hopefully you have some kind of policy around that. But here it goes on to give us some tips on how to define the scope. It covers couple of areas. So one of them being identifying key business and IT assets and scope. Really important. This just helps you understand the business a little better. And then we've got core IT systems and infrastructure, users and data management, compliance and regulatory frameworks, which will give you an understanding again of just the governance within the organization itself. Next thing, you define the IT general controls area. So we have access control, change management, IT ops, business continuity, and disaster recovery. And then some exclusions from scope. If you are going to include this section, really good, especially if you have a specific scope and you want to really state that you're not looking at certain things because of certain reasons. So you can state your exclusions from the scope. Audit methodology, defining risk assessment criteria, reporting and remediation. So this gives you a good way to define your scope, to define critical systems, critical risks, regulatory and compliance considerations, and so forth. And you can generate this in a checklist for purposes of maybe then actually putting it into practice. And maybe what we'll do for this last prompt, where we want to create an IT General Controls Audit Plan. Let's see the output and see if we can actually put it maybe in a table if it doesn't do so, or in a checklist if it doesn't do so. So help me create a high-level audit plan for reviewing IT general controls, including any key milestones. So there's a little typo there, or end key milestones, which is fine. Right. So this is now a draft audit plan, which outlines the phases, activities, timelines, key milestones in a hypothetical way, which you can customize again, which can be adjusted here based on scope, industry relations, and resource availability. So we have the audit plan overview, ITGC audit timelines, and key milestones. So the phase of your audits, the weeks you spend on each phase, the key activities you perform, any milestones. You can then even put some dates just to bring it more to life once you know exactly what you're doing on the audit, and breaks it down by a couple of key areas: reporting, follow-up and monitoring, and so forth. Also lists your audit deliverables, key stakeholders, which can be customized again. You could probably even include maybe some communication protocols, risk categories. We've got your conclusion. So this is an example, and here it offers us an opportunity to produce this in as a detailed ITGC audit checklist. So would you like a detailed IT audit checklist? Just copy that, feeling lazy to type. Yes, I would like a detailed ITGC audit checklist. So there it goes. It will now generate all of this information into a checklist, which you can then copy, paste into Word, Access, or Excel, whatever you use. So really, that's some of the prompts that you can use during planning. And I particularly like ChatGPT, again, because when I started, I didn't have this, and it was straight into the deep end, but it doesn't have to be like that, especially for upcoming IT auditors. So this will be really, really, really useful for you. Right, here we've got our nice checklist. You can customize it, make it more, format it in a way that works for you, but it's covering control areas, control objectives, audit procedures, yes or no. That's too simple, but then again, you can maybe state exactly what you want. So maybe you want a little bit more detail other than just saying it's compliant, yes or no, findings and notes. So that's it really for planning. There's some additional steps here on how to use the checklist. So that really wraps it up for planning. So by doing this, you would then be able to get that planning stage completed, or at least started, and you have a really firm and good starting point. That's it for this video on planning. I'll see you in the next one when we talk about some useful prompts when it comes to the execution stage of the IT general control process. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.